Good morning and welcome to day 3 of our Tommy Flowers Network Spring Conference, Creating Value for Economies. So we've had 2 fantastic days of some really interesting and thought-provoking presentations and discussions, and today is no exception. We're going to be doing a deep dive on collaboration in the pharmaceutical sector. We're going to be finding out about the role of collaboration in developing skills and plugging skills gaps. And we're going to be looking at how important social sciences and considering the human side of things and people is in technology research and why that's an important part of collaboration in that space. But first of all, we're going to go over to Steve Cassidy from BT. Steve is leading our Prosperity Partnership, Next Generation Converged Digital Infrastructure, which is a partnership involving BT and 4 different universities. And he's going to be having a chat with some of the participants to talk about the project and to talk about how collaboration and why collaboration is so important to them. So if you have any questions for the team, do put them in the chat on the Vimeo.
Okay, thanks, Carol. Well, given the topic of the conference on creating value, and particularly looking at collaboration and how it's achieved through collaboration, we thought you'd be very interested to hear a little bit about and question some of the participants in what's the largest academic collaboration that BT is currently involved in at the moment. So it's wide, as Carol says, in 4 universities. It's wide geographically in that we have Lancaster in the north and Surrey in the south, Cambridge in the east, and Bristol in the west, and in a couple of universities, more than 1 department. So it's also wide in terms of the number of disciplines, which I think makes it particularly interesting. So that's one of the things that I hope we can talk a little bit about. It's part of the EPSRC's Prosperity Programme, jointly funded by BT and EPSRC. And the idea was to tackle long-term research in areas of national importance. And so we are running this project on the next generation converged digital infrastructure, which is, of course, a piece of national critical infrastructure. It's like the nerves system for the UK, upon which our social life and commercial life is critically dependent. And we're never more aware of this than at the moment during the pandemic, when we're, instead of enjoying each other's company and cups of coffee, we're here little postcard images on a screen, but along with millions of others across the country every day connecting on this infrastructure. So how do we make it efficient? How do we cope with the complexity, the growing complexity, the number of services, and also the rate of service change? We want the infrastructure to be as reactive as possible to needs. So we have a range of technologies. We have self-learning systems that can look after processes themselves, self-optimize, autonomics, artificial intelligence, deep learning. We have technological elements in terms of the network delivery of 5G and broadband. We want the infrastructure to be able to configure its own solutions in response to needs expressed in sort of more like a business language, new ways to manage service based on the impact on customers and on the impact on the business directly, as opposed to lots of separate little processes. And of course, when you devolve a lot of the decisions to artificial intelligence, the infrastructure starts to make decisions on its own accord. And of course, therefore, how do you trust such a system? You know, what are the skills that you need? What are the governance principles? Does it change the culture and the shape of the company? So, as I say, a big, broad set of disciplines. In terms of size, there's a couple of dozen academic staff members in the universities, probably 3 dozen PhD students, and a couple of dozen of BT researchers involved and in the business as well. So it's a net that spreads very widely, and it's been, I think, for me, quite an interesting experience to understand the relationship and how each of those different areas like augments the others in terms of the value that it generates and the strength of the picture that we're able to describe for the future of the network. And to help with this, I'm really very pleased to be joined by Professor Nick Race from Lancaster, who's the lead academic on the project. We have Professor Ning Wang from Surrey, and we have 4 fine young students here, Pradeep, Maharshi, Will, and Abdirazak. And what I thought I'd do is just prompt a few questions, same ones really, for each of us, just to say a few words. And what I'm hoping is that the questions that then flow are from the audience, because this is your show, and you're witnessing people involved in a rich collaboration. So it's a chance to post a few questions of your own about what the experience feels like, what people have learned, etc. So I hope that's okay. Do stick questions in the chat, and I will look after those. So perhaps we'll start with Nick. I would like to say a little bit about your subject area, how it fits in, what it's been like, how many hairs you've pulled out during the collaboration.
I used to have a full head of hair and it was not great. No, I'm kidding. So hello everyone. So as Steve says, so I'm Nick Race and I'm the academic PI for NG-CDI. And my background's really around the future of computer networks. So in this project, looking at what does networking look like, say, in 2030? And one of the approaches that we're taking to that is really looking at a more agile network. So that's very much focused on the use of, say, software, and increasingly the move to software systems rather than hardware, and the flexibility in those software systems to be able to adapt to challenges in the network and scale to the new challenges that we'll have in meeting the demands that we will need to service for the likes of 2030 and beyond. So my background is very much in how do we build the fundamental future infrastructure that's agile, can adapt to these challenges, and using techniques such as data-driven approaches and automation approaches to try and improve the resilience of those infrastructures. So for me, it's been a really exciting endeavor embarking on the Prosperity Partnership with a number of key partners that Steve's already highlighted. And for me, getting to learn more about the different discipline areas that we have within the project, because we have a wide range of universities involved, but also actually a wide range of discipline areas, from folks involved in a kind of mathematics and statistics, industrial automation, experts in the business area, and then of course people working in networking and wireless and those sorts of systems and 5G. So it's really interesting as the kind of academic PI to look at how these different discipline areas really come together, coalesce, and work on themes that really deliver this future infrastructure. And so for me, one of the kind of the great experiences of the project has been around that collaboration with all the different partners, in the knowledge that we're working on a challenge that is key to the industry, that's potentially going to have huge impact, because it underpins, as Steve says, everything we do now. The network infrastructure is so important, and the last 12 months, I guess, have shown that more than ever, about how important that infrastructure is to everything we do. So for me, it's a really exciting endeavor, and we continue to have another year or so within the project to deliver on this next generation converged digital infrastructure.
Thank you very much, Nick. Very good. So Ning, welcome as well. How have you found the collaboration? Has it influenced the work in any material way? Any other experiences that you'd like to describe?
Yes, thank you, Steve. Yeah, basically, I'm Ning Wang from Surrey University. Basically, this is my great pleasure to join the very, let's say, collaborative, hardworking team to, let's say, tackle some really challenging research challenges in terms of automated networking and network management. So basically, this is not my first time in collaborating with BT. I've got other, let's say, collaborations with BT. But in terms of NG-CDI, basically, my original background is about networking, fixed networks. But since 2013, we launched this 5G Innovation Center at Surrey. So basically, I have to, let's say, cover both the fixed network side as well as the 5G mobile side, sort of, let's say, network management and service management. So through this kind of collaboration with BT in terms of NG-CDI, I think basically, I personally, I learned a lot in terms of, let's say, how to combine, let's say, research, theoretical research with practical, let's say, challenges faced by industry, especially BT. Based from our research team side, especially with regard to our, let's say, PhD topics, this NG-CDI project basically open sort of, let's say, enables to open eyes to think out of the box, okay, not necessarily theoretical analysis, mathematical modeling, but also taking into account what are the real challenges, let's say, faced by industry. And also when we design something, okay, in terms of, let's say, automation or optimization, what are the, let's say, practical challenges and feasibilities, let's say, these kind of things that will need to be, let's say, answered from BT in terms of real, let's say, system deployment. So it's far beyond the theoretical research. So through this kind of, let's say, collaboration, personally, I really like this kind of, let's say, stealth research by taking into account both in-depth research and also practicality requirements and join together. Yeah, that's from me.
Thank you very much, Ning. Similar questions to students. I simply go on the order that people appear on my screen, if I want to have any better sequence. So Abdrazak, do you have any thoughts about what you may have learned from collaboration? Does it has it changed your work? Does it have you learned things beyond the subject area that you feel you might not have done otherwise?
Yeah, sure. As you know, my research involves in developing machine learning techniques for management and orchestration of 5G network slices. So in my experience with collaborating with BT colleagues, it has been very valuable to my research. For instance, I was first considering only delay and throughput as a KPIs. And after discussion, I found out the stability of the machine learning algorithm is very crucial to the system. So in my last presentation, there was some questions from BT colleagues about the stability when we do OT scaling at the UBF, the core network, and it was very crucial. So right now, my research, I'm also considering how to make the machine learning algorithm very stable to allocate resources without all the time judging the system. So I think it's very important to have an idea from the guys who do the real world, implementation of the system. Yeah.
Thank you. Will, how's it been for you?
Yeah, so my work sits within like unikernel technologies, like micro virtual network function technologies and network automation. So it's very deep within the systems and networking domain. So being able to go to the NG-CDI plenaries and have someone show me all the functions to be able to determine all these statistical algorithms to say, this is how we can detect anomalies in a network. So this is how we can better automate a network if something's going wrong. It's something I wish I could understand personally, but it's much nicer to have someone who does statistics be up there presenting this in a way which I'll attempt to absorb with my best effort. But having that there is crucial to be able to make my work in the first place. So that NG-CDI provides that to my work anyway.
Okay, thanks, Will. And Marshi?
Hi, thanks, Steve, for the introduction. Actually, my involvement in NG-CDI is about service assurance. So the application is about when the base stations fail, and for BT to know the time until failure, and they can mitigate their strategies around it. So the participation in the project has been interesting for me because both the application area and the data I have been working with are new for me. I've never worked with systems, with telecommunication systems before, and also the data I'm working with is extremely different from the type of data I've been working with until now. And like Ning said, I think the most exciting part of this project for me has been working with the real systems directly. So that, like, when you theorize something and you need to, when you go apply it, it's totally different. So it's like a feedback loop. And that, for me, that is the most enjoyable part in this project.
Thank you very much. And finally, Pradeep.
Hi, everyone. My internet just became unstable just in the time when I had to speak, but hopefully all of you can hear me. So I'm Pradeep Devta. I'm representing Judge Business School. So I have actually had a long career in the industry, particularly the banking industry, and followed by a stint as a consultant in the sort of UK public innovation space. And I was looking into sort of getting involved, coming back to academia. And, the BT project is actually providing me the opportunity to work in an academic industry collaboration project. So at the same time, so I started working with the BT project and then started a part-time PhD. And my PhD focuses sort of AI, governance, and risk. And that's very, very linked to the motivation from it, comes from this sort of BT project. I think we are part of so from Judge Business School, we're probably the guys who are involved in that project from a more softer side, more organizational and management side of things, to understand how firms and organizations are looking at sort of artificial intelligence and autonomous sort of solutions from a strategic and risk management sort of perspective. So with this, so I've been involved in this project for about a year and a half, sort of part-time basis. But this has given me the ability to sort of link back to my experience sort of in banking, where I used lots of model-driven approach, but also reach out to sort of my contacts and wider industry, because we have interviewed so far about 30 senior management, C-level people across different industries to understand how they look into sort of AI, how they are integrating sort of autonomous solutions and AI in their strategy and risk management process. So that has been, I think it has been a fantastic journey so far, and I look forward to continue to contribute in this project.
Thank you very much. As each of you have been talking, there's a couple of little follow-ups that have struck me. So first one I noted down was, Will, you mentioned the different disciplines that you'd come across, and they seem to have two aspects, if I hear you right. One is that when you need to go deeper in something which is tangential initially to your topic, that having somebody available closer to that discipline is really useful. But the other aspect might be about being able to communicate the potential benefit to a wider set of people, because you've got those other disciplines that are able to explain it in their context. Is that did I pick up right? And did you want to emphasize any of that?
Well, as part of my work, it's about automating deployment of these micro virtual network functions. And part of that is being able to know where to target this deployment. And if you're having to scale a system or contract a system in, knowing where to do that is kind of a vital part of the work. And part of the title of my first poster to this project was bottleneck detection implementations for unikernels. And myself, I can't do this automated detection manually. I have no way of doing that. That requires some statistical analysis of how the network is performing, which is well out of my domain. And NG-CDI has these meetings every now and then. I think it's 2 per year. And it's basically everyone presents their work. A set of people present what they've done in the past 6 months or a year. And having someone who clearly sits within a very different research domain than mine, in this case statistics, be able to present that in a way where they're targeting their presentation to a group of people which don't necessarily know statistics. Sometimes they do go, here's a formula, this should be good for you, and we can try and understand it, but they do try their best to make sure they can target their presentation to a range of people from statistics backgrounds, computing backgrounds, and sometimes backgrounds which are more business focused than technology focused. So it's good to have those presentations every now and then.
Great, thank you. And Abdurazak, I was thinking that the early parts of a PhD are quite often actually trying to scope what on earth the critical topic is going to be, which absorbs a frightening amount of time often at the beginning of a project. I'm just wondering if you think that the conversations with the different collaborators have helped focus that quicker in any way. I mean, it's not it's like a planted question that I want you to say yes, but just give your honest view.
Yeah. So actually, in my first year, I was happy to participate plenary session in Ipswich. That was 2019. And with the discussion, I found out the importance of the network slicing. And me and my supervisor, we discussing about SDN-based technologies, and we were formalizing our proposal for the PhD. And I found out, me and my supervisor found out network slicing will be very important technology. I have to address some resource management and orchestration in network slices. So I think without having that support from that discussion from the experts at BT, I think my research will be different than what I am doing now. Yeah, because I have seen also there was also, I think, vision presentation from one of, I think, executives of BT, and he was talking about cloudification of the telecommunication sector, and all these gave me very good insight of how the networks would be in coming 10 years. So I think it was very helpful to me to go for my research. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And following on from that, Maharshi, that you mentioned that the topics that the skill was being applied to different data from the different domains, and that was interesting in itself, in that it was not the it was application of those same, if you like, initial skills, but to a very different domain, using different data. And you were talking about that being interesting and stimulating. Is there any other thoughts expanding around that you'd like to share?
Yes, so I was pretty aware that every industry has its own strategy of collecting data. They try to optimize the storage space or making the most out for their applications, and BT has its own strategy. So this data was like an event-based data, and I've always worked with like continuous data. So that in itself was quite challenging, and also I had no awareness about the telecommunication systems. So the exciting bit was that not only did I get to learn more from the application side of it, like I didn't know anything about base stations and how they function and everything. So that was a new area for me. And also, if I look at the algorithmic side of it, it's not like I just had some technique in my mind and I had to just apply it on a different set. But it's like I had to change a lot of stuff starting from the scratch, which again got me involved into lots of things I absolutely didn't know before. Like I had to develop functionalities, functional dependence between different alarms and all. So I think that was the most interesting part, and thankfully we had the application side of expertise from BT, and we had like the statistical expertise from other researchers in the project. And I think overall it has been a very, very growing experience for me. Yes.
Great, thank you. Finally, Pradeep, you've been in academia, out into industry and banking, the foreign land of banking, and back into academia. And you're talking in terms of if like being able to apply that mix of the the academic background you have and the industry background they had, albeit in a different domain, but reshaping it. And you were indicating that being able to apply it in a new real application and value generating area has been quite a driver for you. Any thoughts about your journey there, or what affect your decision each time?
I think just gathering my thoughts there. What I think I'm really excited here is about sort of the governance process, or so if you have autonomous AI-driven or model-driven processes which are automated. So I'm quite excited about understanding whether we can have some generalized governance process that can be sort of applied across industries, or have some sort of framework. So when looking into this area, I think we all talk about AI, but we all sort of understand it very differently. And And I think when you look at it from a technical perspective, okay, you can sort of do some classification. But when you try to look at it from a business perspective, organizational perspective, that translates into completely different sort of parameters in terms of what business risk and business problems they culminate into. Now, I think what was interesting, and I didn't necessarily realize this, is having worked in sort of investment banking global markets where we deal with a lot of complex financial products at a high speed, which at a human level, it would take hours to understand one product and price that and trade it, but we did it in a fraction of seconds, and we rely on basically models and very high level of automation to do those things, with, of course, human oversight. What is really interesting is we have potentially a benchmark there for sort of governance of automated systems. And it's quite interesting how you can either adapt it or replicate it or benchmark against, depending on the complexity of autonomous system or AI that you are going to implement. And I think that has been sort of really exciting discovery, if you like. And I'm hoping to do some more work and some contribution there in the academia.
I like this idea of a governance framework for all industries. I think there's nothing like having a grand ambition. So, and people shape AI, and then afterwards AI shapes people. So it's something we do have to take seriously, and in particular have the network will sit in an organisation, and the organisation fundamentally is people. So that interface around the technology is critical. I'm just going to ask Mike in case any questions have popped up on the chat from the audience.
No, I wanted
We have had one question from Sue Hesse. It says, how have the panelists tracked the value of the work that industry has benefited from? What metrics do you use?
So is that the benefit that's so far from the project, or we're talking more generally?
Well, I think it's a more general. I mean, I kind of get, working for a telco, I kind of get it. But if I'm a big construction company or manufacturing company, what value am I going to get from this, and what are the benefits from that, and then how are you guys going to measure that benefit?
Yeah, thanks, Mike, and thanks, Sue. Hello there. Well, I'll have a quick answer, and then perhaps get Nick and Ning to say a few words. We have a mix on the project. We have some of the results are actually in, I nearly said experimental, but it's more than that, operational test in the company at the moment. So there's some very short-term benefits in particular areas. Given that it's a long-term project, we're wanting to have an influence on the industry because, of course, BT eventually buys this technology. And so we have quite a lot of route out to standards. And the third element, I would say, is thought influence to get not only BT, but the world to think seriously about how you run an AI system, an autonomic system making its own decisions. And as Pradeep says, how you govern that, what that might mean in terms of skills planning, identifying roles in a company that currently have no particular analog, the ethics and fairness and safety of self-governing systems are all very new for the whole world. And so we want to be thought influencers in other disciplines, but also within the company so that it can be prepared and deploy this stuff safely. But I'll just pass over to Nick and then Ning, if you have any words on that. Nick?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think in terms of impact, I mean, as a university, I guess our bread and butter is in terms of academic output and open publications, and the work that we do is very much published increasingly in the kind of the wider open public domain. And I think the other thing I would say is open source software. A lot of what we do within the project, we contribute into open source projects. There's lots of activity in terms of developing software systems that can underpin this infrastructure, and NG-CDI has a real role to play in contribution to those open source communities. So developing our own software, putting that back into the community so that then other industries can use that software and build that software to support their own platforms. So I think particularly around software and publications, and as Steve already touched on, thought influence and standards bodies. A lot of the work we do increasingly goes into standards, and so we're very much involved in some of the standards, the large standards bodies within our industry, so standards bodies such as the IETF, and contributing to the next phase of standards that will be underpinning the network of the future. So those are a few of the areas where I think NG-CDI is definitely having impact.
So we very much support the open academic publications and the open source software, because it's not, the project isn't for any one industry to get ahead. The whole industry has to get ahead. So being able to influence broadly and make some of these techniques available and have more people understanding them, developing them, actually ripples back into any one company as a benefit. So that's a really important point, Nick. Thanks. Ning, any further thoughts on that?
Yeah, just a few words to add. Actually, in addition to the let's say open source software and also standardization let's say activities, I'd like also to mention the let's say the significance of using BT testing infrastructure as well as BT testing data to, let's say, realistically evaluate what we have proposed. Okay, I think this is a very unique sort of, let's say, feature, and when we do this kind of, let's say, network management research, because more or less that's changed our, let's say, traditional methodology based on pure, let's say, simulation-based and also based on, let's say, synthetically generated data. But by using this kind of, let's say, real-life data with some sort of course, anonymized feature, that allows our research team to let's say, to more realistically looking the problems and what actually happens in reality, and certainly that will also help us to, let's say, publish let's say world-leading sort of quality research papers. Yeah, that's from me.
Thank you. I think also in terms of the as I'm not quite sure how many more minutes we've got left, but a few words for me about the experience. I think with any research organization such as BTs, there are, of course, many more aspects that we need to understand, look at the feasibility of, explore, than we're able to do in-house. And I think it's been a particularly fascinating experience for me, is that over and above having single university projects, to have something of this breadth means that some of the more the ideas with most open potential can be explored in all their features in parallel, just to really solidify and to stimulate the thinking. So I think it's increased the scope exponentially, logarithmically, superlinearly than just the sum of the projects. So I think that's been a fantastic value.
Okay, and Steve, unfortunately, I'm going to start bringing this this panel discussion to a close. Actually, if we had the time, I could go on for another hour or more, because I had some discussions around skills, how it's going to change skills, about the efficacy of AI in this environment and the transparency of it when things don't go right, and also other vendors, equipment vendors in this environment as well. So there's a whole other range of questions we could cover up. Unfortunately, we've timed out, and perhaps we need to come back and revisit this at a later date.